Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and the Asuka 1/35 scale M4A376 wet VVSS late. Yes, that's a mouthful, but that's what it is. I'll try not to use that too much more. But anyway, working some more on some weathering. Starting to get near wrapping this up. I've got my figure done, but I'll show that later, maybe in another video, maybe the final video, I don't know. But anyway, so now it's time to do some dirtying up of the vehicle on the top. I've got the sides all done. I put some more of the clay wash on here. And basically what I want to do is try and keep my hand out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Get the front end dirtied up a little bit more due to traffic, especially on this side over here. Why? I don't know, because the hatch is open, I guess. So just scrub some of this in just to make it kind of dirty and kind of make it not quite so uniform looking. I'm going to try and get this front end kind of wrapped up, then I can move to the back where we're going to have some, you know, fuel stains, oil stains, stuff like that. So I'll work on this a little bit, and this is getting close to being done, so this video, I may be jumping around a bit. Sorry, but, you know, I'm never claimed to be the best videographer in the world. So that looks pretty good. A little more dirty. I think I may add a little bit on this side here, because I kind of like the way that turned out, but just to show where there's some traffic, where the driver and the co-driver would be. So let me work on that a little bit, and then we'll come back and see how it looks. Matter of fact, let me just show you how I did it. Basically, I just got it and got most of it off, and then just started stippling it on here just to make it look kind of rough. Kind of break up those streaks a bit. I'll put some up here. I just want it to look like there's been some traffic up here. Put a little bit more over there. Now all I got to do is just let it dry, and then I can come through and scrub it up again like I did on that one. I found, since I've started experimenting with this stuff a little bit more, I really like the effects I get. I really like oils and what I can do with those for some things, but for some things I just tend to get a little bit too much thinner, and it can screw up everything around it or just look overly streaky, or I get tide marks or whatever. So, you know, it's a big fat learning process. I'm always trying to learn and get this stuff figured out. So as you can see, that's drying up really well. So we'll let that dry for a second, and then we'll come back and scrub some of that off of there. Alright, so it's pretty dry, so let's just kind of get that scrubbed in. You know, notice that I didn't, you know, put a real even coat on it because I want it to be kind of splotchy and fadey in certain areas, so it doesn't look like somebody, you know, spilled a bucket of brown stuff down the front. What I'm using is it's a golden Taklon brush, just really cheap set I bought at a local chain hobby slash craft store. Good old Hobby Lobby. You can buy this whole set for like $5 or $6, and they work good for a lot of things. I mean, I actually use a lot of them. Use some of them for painting, but they're good brushes to kind of hack up if you want a different. Like this one's like real. It was a long one. It was about that long, and you know, you can see the size of it. It's a number 8, but I just chopped it off just for doing stuff like this. And it seems to work pretty good for this kind of thing. And, you know, if I'd have screwed it up, chopping it up, no, it wouldn't have been too bad because not real expensive. So that looks pretty good. All right, so there's that. So let's do a little bit of it on the turret. So let me work on that, come back. All right, now I'm trying to get a little bit of smudging and dirt around places where the crew would be grabbing hatches, handles, stuff like that. I'm just using Abteilung 125 light mud, and I'm just basically stippling it on around the handles, and then just kind of blending it in a little bit so it doesn't look quite so painty. I'm just using a dry brush here. Just trying to make it look a little dirty around where muddy hands would be. Hopefully it's working. Now, one thing I'm trying to think about is on the machine gun, not weathering that up too much as far as dirt, stuff like that, because, you know, I've recently saw some video of some dudes, and they were in some I don't even remember where it was. I mean, I watched so many videos researching this stuff, but they were you know, in a pretty dirty vehicle, you know, war-torn vehicle, and they were just kind of hanging out, and one of the dudes was really cleaning on the M250 caliber, and I kind of thought about that, and I thought, you know, there's certain things that you're not really going to care that much about. Like, you're not going to care if you're getting footprints all over your turret or all over your whatever, but you're going to make sure that your engine is running good, the running gear is operating properly, and your weapons are clean, because that is the stuff that's gonna, you know, kind of gonna be the life or death thing. You know, you got to really make sure that your equipment is taken care of and operating properly, because if not, that could mean some bad news. That's getting too splotchy looking. I'm really gonna have to blend that in. It's kind of awkward doing it at this angle, so I'm gonna change angles, or I'm gonna work on this off camera. All right, that's a little better. So I'm gonna do a little bit more of the clay wash around these hatch areas, more on the sides. Like here. really trying to make sure it's like splotchy and not streaky. There might be some areas where, you know, a boot would slip or make something look kind of streaked, but I don't want it to look fake, even though it is. So there's that. So I'm also going to put some back here on the engine deck where the guys would be standing to do refueling and stuff like that. Really, there's going to be just footprints and junk everywhere because these guys are just hard-working fools trying to keep their tank in tip-top shape. So I'll continue with this a little bit and we'll come back and look. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to peel these, since I don't have to worry about spraying anything anymore, peel these masks off of these glass parts here. I'm just going to peel them up on the edge and then I'll use tweezers to pull them the rest of the way. I'm actually pretty stoked I'm remembering to do this because I've forgotten before. So you have some nice glass going on. Just like that. So I'm pretty stoked with those little bits of tape. They sure help. So there's that. So next, get my stuff ready and we'll do some staining oil and fuel spills and all that kind of stuff. Tip of the day: when shaking up Vallejo engine stained stuff, watch it, because as you can see, I don't know how I didn't notice that, it gets real chunky and crusty, and when you shake it up, it'll just fly all over the place. Glad it didn't sling on my model. I'd have been upset. Of course, I guess I could have just blended it in. This particular one is oil stains, and yeah, it gets real crusty. I never noticed that before. So these are crummy pliers or tweezers too, so don't freak out. But yeah, that's real chunky, and because of the way that they design these threads, they're not continuous threads. It just leaks right around the edges. So that's tip of the day. That's free, no extra charge. So if you use this stuff, see, look at that, big chunks. Watch it so you don't sling it everywhere, because if you happen to be wearing a tuxedo or, you know, a white linen suit, you could sling it all over yourself and you would be quite sad. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to clean this up and then come back. Alright, so I'm using the old crazy oil stains with the weird threads on the bottle. And I'm just basically going to splotch some around these engine covers on the edges. I don't know how badly these things leaked oil or whatever, but I'm sure there'd be some stuff getting all over. You can do the same thing with oils of different kinds. As a matter of fact, I did it on my last kit. I used, as a matter of fact, 502 Abteilung makes a good engine grease, and it's an oil, and it's nice and shiny. And it gives a nice effect. So now it's kind of nice putting this on top of this clay wash, because it maintains part of the sheen, but part of it gets kind of dull, so some of it looks old, some of it looks new, and you know, I think it looks pretty cool. I don't know, could be blowing smoke here, but it looks pretty groovy, I think. So we'll let that dry for a few minutes before we handle it, and then we'll move on to some fuel stains. Alright, so I got some oil stains on here. So I need to do the fuel stains. Now, one thing I must be tripping, but I thought, oh, you know what? I thought there were weep holes on the this lip, or whatever you call it. I thought there were weep holes molded into this thing for the fuel to leak out if you spilled some or whatever. But obviously there's not. And what's weird, it looks like there's some weep holes here and here, here and here. You know, for water to leak out there, but I don't know. I must be losing it. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is get the old pin vise and drill some weep holes in there, or else it just won't make sense with all my fuel spilling out. So let me get that out and do that. I normally do that, but like I said, I thought it was already there on this one, but obviously not. So I need to find an appropriate size. So give me a sec. I'm going to find a drill bit and get this drilled out. Alright, so I did that. So now I'm just going to take this and just kind of apply some around where fuel would spill and drip. Around the filler cap covers here. Now I don't want to get on top of the filler cap covers because there wouldn't really be any on there. Unless, you know, I guess somebody could like forget to take it off. Like, oh, sorry, sir, I forgot to take the thing off. But I think you'd get in trouble. So we want to put it around here like this without getting it on the tools. some run down a little bit on the side here. And then spill off on here. And even kind of pull a little bit along this edge here. That's all right, I guess. So there's that. So I'll do the same thing on the other side, like that. All right, so as far as all the weathering and all that kind of stuff goes, I'm pretty much done. I'm going to add some stowage on here, but I want to decide what I'm going to do, so I'm not going to do that right now. But one thing I do need to do is I need to glue these tracks down with some super glue. These tracks are just kind of loose for some reason, and I've got them extended all the way back with the idler wheel adjusters. Kind of disappointed in the fact that it is so loose. They're kind of floating, so I'm going to have to glue those on. Use some super glue and glue them onto the skids and the rollers and hope it doesn't look too wonky. So I'll work on that and come back. Alright, so next up, I decided after all to go ahead and do some stowage. So I had this, I think it was from a Legends set, I think. Can't remember. Yeah, I think it was a Legends set. As a matter of fact, I think it was something I got for the 6x6 US 6x6 truck that I did a few years back, and I had a lot of stuff left over because I didn't use near what's actually in the set. So I found this, and this fits perfectly, like it was designed to fit right in there. And it may have been, maybe not for this exact kit, but for that type of area. So I primed it with the old one-shot ammo by MiG. And now I'm using, to paint the ropes, I'm using Vallejo model color and a little bit of distilled water for the ropes. So I'm going to start painting this stuff and getting it ready to go. And I'll put that on the back. Put that on the back. Do some weathering on stuff like that. So I'm going to work on this for a bit, but also I decided I wanted to do another figure because I'm trying two different figure painting methods. I used acrylics on one figure, and I'll talk about the figures later. I'm not going to do it right now, but then the other one, it's an older Tamiya figure that's fairly decent, and it'll be a good test bed for practicing, you know, figure painting. So what I'm going to do, I've already primed him, and I just primed him basically from the waist up because that's the part that you're going to see. And I'm going to base paint it with latex paints, acrylics, and then I'm going to use oils to do the actual shading and highlighting and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how that works. because on the other figure I just used acrylics only. So we'll see how that works out. So I'll be back in a little bit and we'll take a look at my progress. So while I have some paint drying, I'm also having to super glue these tracks down to the return rollers, because the track, for some crazy reason, it's just not, I've got these adjustable cams on the idler wheels adjusted to their full extension, and the tracks just aren't real tight. So I had a little bit of bow going on it, so I got that super glued on there and looks much better. So I'll do the other side. I got some paint drying on the other stuff, that's why I'm taking this time to do this. I think I need to get this weird kink somewhere else. Now I will note one thing that I've noticed on the Asuka Shermans, that's kind of weird and annoying, is one side, that adjustable cam thing, is just not very cooperative. It cocks the wheel out a little bit, and it's kind of weird, and it's just not very cool. So, but you know, whatever. I probably could have monkeyed around with it and adjusted it or something, but I didn't. So anyway, ooh, I think I've learned my lesson, though. I really need to the detail on these vinyl or whatever they are tracks, the detail's good, I like it, but there's just some things that are somewhat problematic about them, and one thing being paint flakes off. I have yet to discover a way to apply paints, and it doesn't matter what kind, what type of paint it is, it flakes off with a lot of bending and moving around. It can be disguised, you know, like I did with dirt and mud and all that kind of stuff, but still it's just, you know, kind of annoying. And then you know, if you have a fit issue, you can't like remove a link or anything like that. So I'll be sticking with individual length tracks in the future. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with a "I told you so" kind of thing going on, but you know what, whatever. That's what it is. I'm gonna have that kink right there, and that's just not cool, but it's gonna have to stay there. That's weird because I didn't notice that before. Sometimes there are just letdowns in a kit, so I'll just have to be sure and display it from the other side. So let's see if I can get this in here without getting too much. I might be able to put something on the inside of the track there, something straight to kind of stiffen it up, but I don't know if I'll even mess with it. So I'm almost done with that, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll come back and paint a little bit more on this. All right, the next thing I'm going to paint is I think I'm going to paint the straps there and there. I'm going to paint that using khaki. Make it look like a faded green. And again, I'm just going to put a little bit in my little palette thing here, and some distilled water over here. Why distilled? Because that's what's in my bottle, and it's marked dist for distilled. And then I'm going to use my handy dandy #2 round Princeton Velvet Touch brush, number 3950R. Got that at Hobby Lobby. And it's a pretty cool brush. It's inexpensive, but it seems to work really good, especially for stuff like this. So let's see. Now the reason I'm painting these things is because whenever I paint the actual canvas stuff, I can basically paint up to the edge of it, so I don't get too much, painting out of the lines kind of thing. And if I paint just a little bit past it, it gives me a good reference point of where I need to go. Now I know I just really complain about Vallejo Model Air and airbrush, but I really do like painting with Vallejo Model Color, and I like the brush paint Model Air, but you can really control the just by using some water. I've even used the airbrush thinner before to, I missed a rope. Guess what? It's getting painted this color. Ain't much difference anyway. I'll fix that with the right color in a little while. I can't cheat. But it's easy to control this this paint for the viscosity, so you can get nice some nice paint going. Okay, we got one more strap down here, so I'm going to work on this a little bit, paint this strap. We'll come back, take a look. I don't want to bore you painting this, but I'm almost done. And then I've got some greens picked out for the actual canvas, and I'll show you those whenever. Another thing I like about this paint is it dries really fast, and once it dries, you don't have to worry about reactivating it or anything like that. Whenever you start brushing the other stuff on it, really pretty groovy. Now here's something to note. As you can see, I've got my rope here, my strap here, my canvas here. This is a good time to talk a little bit about the importance of weathering, because right now it looks really flat. And I say weathering, really it's just more like kind of I don't know, changing up the tone and everything of the paint you're doing. So just in looking at it like this, it looks really flat. It doesn't really have any depth to it. There's texture, you can tell there's texture and stuff, but it just looks blah. It's like, paint by number stuff. And just by using washes and adding some highlights, some shadows, really helps. And I'm going to show you how I do it, because I don't, now realistically I should be when I paint this stuff, I should be painting like you do with uniforms, using shadows and highlights and all that kind of stuff. But I have another method I use that's simpler, and it's kind of a lazy way to do it, but it works. And that's generally the way I do it. Because, you know, I'm one of those shortcut kind of guys. Changing brushes here so I can get down in here. I should have a better brush, but I don't. Okay, see, that turned out pretty good. So whenever I get to it, I'm going to continue painting this stuff. I'm going to paint all the canvas. I'll be using 2 different colors here. I used US dark green for this one. I'm going to use Russian green, which is a little bit lighter for this side here, just so they won't look the same. I will paint this here. It's an ammo box, so I'll paint that in olive drab, and then I will come back and show you how I, you know, kind of weather it or add some depth and a little bit of texture to it. So, hang tight. Alright, so I got everything painted. So now I need to do a little bit of, so I have a little bit of detailing, let's call it. Using my black 502 oil paints and some odorless thinner. Start doing some pin washes here. Bring out some of the details. Hopefully do it in a way that doesn't splotch everything all over tarnation. Just like anything else, it's going to bring out the detail a little bit more. Create false shadows and, you know, stuff like that. This we're going to run right down this rope, kind of hopefully fill in some of the rope texture. It's already starting to make the details stand out quite a bit more. And if you get some on the actual paint itself, it doesn't matter, because these things weren't all pristine and clean anyway. So if it does a little staining, it's a win. Fortunately, the detail on this stuff is pretty sharp. So it takes washes really well. Now, if I were to be using Tamiya, I'd definitely be putting a clear coat on this before I do this, because I'd have a real mess on my hands with it just absorbing into the surrounding paint instead of actually lining along the details. So as you can see here, it's filling all this in really well. It also helps too if you're not quite painted perfectly along the edge of the details. This will help kind of blend it together, kind of cheat, if you will, in making the details stand out a little bit better and look a little more, a little sharper. And don't forget all the, if there's any folds or anything like that in the fabric. Now see, as you can see, it's already helped a bunch just doing this to make the details stand out much better. Add some simulated shadow in the folds of the fabric. You know, if it's not quite the way you want it, add another layer. It's not going to hurt. And if you get too much and you don't like it, then just simply remove it with some of your odorless thinner. All right, so now we have to let that dry. And then we can come do a little bit of highlighting, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that in a cheaty kind of way. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. To give a little bit of highlights on the green portions, I'm using one of these Tamiya Weathering Master makeup kits. I'm kidding. Looks like a makeup kit, though. And I'm going to use the light sand because it's got kind of a little bit of a greenish hue to it. And all I do is use a little applicator brush that comes with it, and I just kind of rub it on there. And then just basically, it's like dry brushing, but it's a little more subtle, I think. Go across the tops like that. You see it's starting to bring out some of the detail of the folds and the higher parts. So it's not, so the greens aren't so uniform looking. Making it just a little bit dusty looking. Now we'll do the same thing on the end here. That's just going to hit the highlights like that. So it just makes it look a little bit dusty, a little bit faded on the outer edges. So there you go. That's that. So now it's ready to put on the tank. All right, so as I said, it looked like it was designed to fit into that fold down shelf in the back. So I used some of my Gator's Grip acrylic hobby glue. It's really thick. It's kind of like PVA glue, but much thicker. Use that, glued that on there. Hopefully it'll stay. If not, then I will use some super glue or something. So the next thing I need to do is work on this little bloke here. So I'm not going to do that on camera. And as a matter of fact, I'm just going to paint him and put him in place. So with that, I think that's the end of this episode. So next time, when we come back, whether I have this guy completely painted or not, I'll be done. And I will do the final reveal on this 1/35 scale Asuka Sherman M4A3. So as always, thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, comments, hints, tips, etc., just put them in the comments section down below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I will see you all later.